Hello, welcome to this course of Operations and Supply Chain Management. This is Chapter 1 about operations and productivity. What is operations management? Operations management is the set of activities that create value in the form of goods and service by transforming inputs into outputs. That's a very important concept. We are going to see which are the inputs and which are the outputs. And the operation management is a field of management that deals with this, creating value and satisfying customer needs by manufacturing goods or providing service, transforming input into outputs. Now, this is a good example of operations management. This is a company that all of you know, Hard Rock Cafe, was established in 1971, is now in more than 50 countries all around the world. Besides being a restaurant, it offers another entertainment like rock music memorabilia, of course, value in the form of good food and entertainment. Only in Orlando, in Universal Studios in Orlando, more than 3,500 custom meals are served by day. And it's very difficult to get an item into the menu. And the role of operations management is very important. I recommend you to watch the video that is in the bottom of this slide to see how operations management is applied in Hard Rock Cafe. Now, normally there are certain very important functions of management or areas within a company: marketing, operations, and finance and accounting. This course deals with operations management and supply chain management. There are several examples of this division between marketing, operations, and finance, or everything related to financial services. For instance, in a bank, there are several operations like teller scheduling, check clearing, collection, and there are activities in the areas of finance and marketing. For an airline, there are some operations like ground support, equipment, maintenance, flying, communication, dispatching, and there are also activities in the area of finance and marketing. You can review this slide more in detail as an example of these three areas of management. In manufacturing, there are a lot of operations. We are going to see in detail some of them, like inventory control, quality control, supply chain management is part of the title of this course, manufacturing itself, design, industrial engineering techniques, process analysis and capacity analysis, and there are also activities related to finance and marketing. Now, the supply chain is a global network of organizations and companies and activities that supply a company with goods and services. Now, we talk about the global network of organizations because now, because of globalization, you can have supplies all around the world. In next chapter, in Chapter 2, we are going to study global strategies in the context of operations management, because it's very important in the world of today. Now, there are several companies that are involved in a supply chain: the suppliers themselves, the manufacturers, the retailers, the wholesalers, the distributors, and finally the customers. They collaborate to achieve high levels of customer satisfaction. That's the purpose and the objective, but also try to be more efficient and gain competitive advantage. Today, more than one company competing against another company. The supply chain of one company competes with the supply chain of another company. In the bottom part of this slide is a very simple examples of supply chain. A farmer that collects the products in the field, then a syrup producer because they need the raw materials to produce syrup, then a company that bottles, the bottler that put the syrup in bottles, then a distributor a retailer, and finally the customer. We are going to see much more in detail about supply chain in Chapter 11 of this course. Now, why study operations management is one of the three major functions of any organization that we mentioned before, and it's very important to organize, to see how people organize themselves for being a productive enterprise and gain competitive advantage. We want and need to know how goods and services are produced. We want to understand what operations managers do. It's a costly part of organization because it involves so many things. We are going to see that in the following slides. Now, here is an example of the importance of operations management. Imagine that today, the current situation is you have $100,000 in sales, and imagine that the cost of producing the products and then try to sell those products is 80% of the sales. That is, it costs me $80,000 to produce the good that I'm going to sell for $100,000. Then the gross margin is the difference, $20,000. Now imagine that I need to borrow some money from the bank and I had to pay the interest. Imagine that the finance cost is $6,000. Then the margin is now $14,000 and the taxes is 25%. Then the profit after taxes is $10,500. Now imagine that I would like to increase profits. Try to increase profits as much as I can. One option that I call the marketing option is, for instance, increase sales revenue by 50%, which is too much. Instead of selling $100,000, selling $150,000, as you can see here. Now, we said that 80% of that is the cost of goods sold. Then 80% of 150,000 is 120,000. Then the gross margin is 30,000. Imagine that the finance costs are the same. Then it's 24,000, and 25% of that is in taxes. Then the profit is $18,000, which is greater or bigger than the current situation, but you need to increase sales by 50%, which is too much. Another option is the finance option, to reduce the finance cost by 50%. Then the sales stay the same, the cost of goods sold stay the same, but instead of $6,000, it's now $3,000 in finance cost. And then after the taxes, the profit is $12,750. But the operation management option, you are going to stay with the same volume of sales, but try to reduce the production cost. Instead of being 20% of the sales, it's going to be 16% of the sales. Then instead you reduce production cost by 20%, by 16,000. Then instead of 80,000, now the cost is 64,000. How do you do this? You negotiate with your suppliers for better prices and better conditions. Then this is your gross margin. The finance cost is the same, the original $6,000, and taxes is $7,500 because it's 25% of the gross margin. Then the profit after taxes is $22,500, which is the best option. And I just have to reduce cost. I do not have to increase sales. That is the other option here, which is maybe unrealistic, to increase sales by 50%, excuse me. And also maybe it's unrealistic to reduce finance cost by 50%. Then this is more realistic, and you only need to control your supply chain. Now, the basic management of functions are planning, organizing, staffing, leading, and controlling. And that's basic function of management apply for operations manager, for finance manager, for marketing manager. You have to plan, to organize, to staff with good talent, people that are the skills, the necessary skills that you need in your operation, and then leading to execute leadership and also control the operations. There are 10 strategic decisions within operations management. We are going to see most of them in detail in several chapters of this course. The first is the design of goods and services, define what is required of operations. We are going to see that in chapter 5. The second is managing quality or quality control. The third is process capacity and process analysis. We are going to study that in chapter 7. The fourth is location strategy, to establish our facility near customers, suppliers, and talent. We're going to see that in chapter 9. Lookout strategy, integrate capacity needs. It's important the distribution of our offices or manufacturing plant to determine the efficient flow of materials, people, and information. Also, human resource adjunct design is another strategic decision. The supply chain management itself, we are going to study that topic in detail in this course. Also, inventory management and inventory control, optimize the inventory management, trying to minimize the cost, considering customer satisfaction, supply capability, and production schedules. Scheduling is other of the 10 strategic management decision, and maintenance is another one. I highly recommend to watch this video about Frito-Lay. Frito-Lay is a company that have several factories around the United States. This video is about the factory that Frito-Lay has in Orlando, Florida, and in the video explain the 10 strategic decisions of operations management in relation to this company, to Frito-Lay. There are many jobs now in operations management in the area of technology, facilities, strategy, customer service, quality, cost reduction, inventory reduction, productivity improvement. There are many opportunities. You can go to a different job boards and you see that there are a lot of positions available for plant managers, operation analysts, quality managers, supply chain manager, process improvement consultants, and many others. There are also many organizations that provide certifications for companies that excel in operations management, and also provide the best practices in the industries, different industries. The Association for Operations Management, the American Society for Quality, the Institute for Supply Management, the Project Management Institute, and others. There are significant events in operations management. Operations management is something that is not something that is in this century or in the last 50 years. It's something that started 200, 300 years ago. Initially, there was a cost focus. There were some people that tried to minimize costs or reduce the cost by labor specialization. The works of Adam Smith and Babbage were very important. Using standardized parts is the work of Whitney. Scientific management from 1918 to 1910. Frederick Taylor is the father of scientific management, but also there are other relevant individuals like Henry Gantt that developed the Gantt charts. The motion on time study by Fran and Lineal Gilbreth. Process analysis by Taylor himself. Queuing analysis by Erlang. The mass production era between 1910 and 1918 developed the assembly line by Henry Ford and Sorensen, statistical sampling by Schuhart, the economic order quantity that is using inventory control by Harris, and other techniques like linear programming per CPM, we are going to see that in chapter 3 by DuPont, and material requirement planning, MRP. Then the focus was quality between 1980 and 1995, the lean production era. Then there are many concepts in this area, like just-in-time inventory control, computer-aided design CAD, electronic data interchange EDI, total quality management TQM, the Baldrige Award, empowerment, and Kanban. We are going to see in detail all of these concepts in this course. Between 1995 and 2005, the customization focus. The World Wide Web started in 1995, then we started to talk about internet and e-commerce. enterprise resource planning software like SAP or SAP or Oracle, JD Edwards, and others, with certification like the ISO 9000 for international quality standards, finance scheduling, the supply chain management starting in 1995 concept, mass customization, and build to order. Now, from 2005 until 2020 and beyond, we are talking about global supply chains, the growth of multinational corporations, instant communication because of technology, sustainability, ethics, logistics, and many other concepts and trends. As a summary of the previous slide, we talk about the division of labor by Adam Smith and Babbage, standardized parts, scientific management by Taylor, assembly line by Ford, the Gantt chart by Henry Gantt, motion study by Frank and Lilia Gilbreth, quality control by Schuhart. Then the first drawings of a computer by Atanosov in 1938, CPM pair by DuPont and the Navy between 1957 and 58, material requirement planning by Orlicki in 1960, computerized design CAD in 1970s, flexible manufacturing system in 1975, the Balbridge Quality Award in 1980, computer integrated manufacturing in 1990, globalization in 1992, internet in 1995. Frederick Taylor was known as the father of scientific management. Began her in 1981 as chief engineer, studied how tasks were done, and created efficiency principles. The basic principles of Taylor are matching employees to the right job, providing the proper training, providing proper work methods and tools, establish legitimate incentives for work to be accomplished. Now, all of these principles for you now are obvious, but 100 years ago, it was not the case. Many employees were not matched to the right job. They didn't receive training. They didn't have methods or tools for performing their jobs, and there were no incentives to work. But Taylor established this, and that's the reason he's known as the father of scientific management. Frank Lilia Gilbreth developed work measuring methods. His husband and wife engineering team. Henry Ford developed the assembly line and the conveyor belt design. Developed the Model T 1913. Paid workers very well from 1911, $5 a day in 1911. That was a very good salary. Edward Deming, considered one of the father of quality control, engineering and physicists, he was credited with teaching Japan quality control methods after World War II. Used statistics to analyze process. His method involved worker indecision. We are going to study that in detail when we study quality control and quality management. Also, operations management has a contribution for human resource management, industrial engineering, management science, biological science, physical science, information technology. Now, operations, when you talk about operations, it's for goods and services, not only manufacturing products, but also you can sell products that other people manufacture or provide services. Now, of course, there are a lot of difference between manufacturing goods or dealing with goods, physical goods, and providing service. You can see this slide much more in detail in the book and also in this presentation. This is also a chart about how agricultural, manufacturing, and service employment has changed in the United States from the 1800s until today. As you can see, the black line is agricultural employment is decreasing from almost 90% in the 1800s to almost 1% today. The dark blue line is service industry, which is increasing, and the light blue line is manufacturing service that is also decreasing. Now in manufacturing you have a lot of robots and computers and technology that are doing the job that before people were performing, and now there is a lot of employment in the service industry. However, the service pay is not as much as manufacturing pay, That has improved in the last 10 years, but still in many areas the service pace is below the national average. Now the other part of this chapter has to do with productivity. Productivity is the ratio of outputs, the quantity of goods and services that I produce or provide, divided by the inputs, the resources that I need to manufacture those outputs, resources such as labor and capital and others. Then we would like to improve productivity. Normally, the productivity in the United States is about there is an annual increase of 2.5% increase in productivity per year. There are some inputs like labor, capital management, and outputs and goods and services. For instance, this is an example of improving productivity at Starbucks. A team of 10 analysts continually look for ways to check time. So improvement. Stop requiring signatures on credit card purchases under $25, save 8 seconds per transaction. Change the size of the ice scoop, save 14 seconds per drink. New espresso machine saves 12 seconds per drink. Then operations improvement has helped Starbucks increase yearly revenue per outlet for each store by an estimate of between $250,000 to $1 million in 7 years. Then productivity has improved 27% or about 4.5% per year, which is greater than the productivity of the United States. And I mentioned was 2.5% per year, the increase in productivity. Then productivity is unit produced into input use. You can increase this numerator and increase productivity, or decrease the denominator and also increase productivity, or increase the numerator and simultaneously decrease the denominator. You use less resources to produce more quantity and then increase a lot the productivity. For instance, using this formula in relation to labor, if you produce 1,000 units and you take 25 hours to produce that, or one worker per worker, then you produce 4 units per labor hour. Now, if you produce instead of 1,000, 1,500 with the same 25 labor hours, then 1,500 into 25 is going to be 6 units per labor because you increase the numerator. Or if you produce the same 1,000 but instead of 25 labor hours, you use only 20, then 1,000 into 20 is 5 units per labor. You also can increase productivity if you decrease the number of resources or inputs. Now there is something called multi-factor productivity. The numerator is the same the output, but besides labor, you add energy, capital, materials, all the elements that are part of the resources that you need in order to produce the product. It's called multi-factor productivity. In this example, Collins Title Productivity is a company, an insurance company, wants to evaluate its labor and multi-factor productivity with a new computerized title search system. The company has a staff of 4 people, each working 8 hours per day. Then the payroll is $640 per day. An overhead expenses of $400 per day. Calling processes and closes in 8 titles each day. The new computerized title search system will allow the processing of 14 titles per day. Then it's going to be an increase from 8 to 14. However, even so, the number of people, their work hours, and the pay are the same. The overhead expenses are now $800 per day. There is an extra cost. Then examine the productivity in the old system. You have a staff of 4 workers, 8 hours per day, and a payroll of $640 per day, 8 titles per day, and since there are 4 workers multiplied by 8 hours per day, you have 32 labor hours. Then the old labor productivity is 0.25 titles per labor hour. Now, the new system, you produce 14 titles per day, but the overhead is now $800 per day. The new labor productivity in relation to labor, just labor, is going to be 0.4375 titles per labor hour. It's greater with the new system, but you are just measuring here labor. We are not taking into account the payroll cost and the overhead. If we evaluate the old system and the new system, taking into account the production divided into the payroll plus the overhead, then the old multi-factor productivity is 0.0077 titles per dollar, and the new is 40 divided into 640. 40 is the same, but now the overhead is 800 instead of 400. Then the productivity is 0.097 titles per dollar. Then in the labor productivity with just one resource, labor, and the multi-factor productivity, the new system is much more productive than the old system. Now, in this measuring of productivity, there are some problems. The quality may change while the quantity of inputs and outputs remain constant. And you have to be sure that the quality remains the same or increases. External elements may cause an increase or decrease in productivity, like for instance a power failure or labor strikes or many other factors. The precise units of measure may be lacking also. Productivity variables are labor, is about 10% of the annual increase in productivity. Capital is about 38% of the annual increase. Capital is not only money, it's the machines that you have, the equipment that you have. And management contributes about 52% of the annual increase. Then if you have a good management team with appropriate skills, then for sure you are going to increase productivity. There are key variables for improving labor productivity: basic education of the labor force, proper diet of the labor force, a social overhead that makes labor available. Then the challenge is maintaining and enhancing the skills in rapidly changing technology and knowledge that's the trend in the world of today. This is the case of capital. Management is very important. You have to have the resources and capabilities, the knowledge, and also the skills that are necessary to apply different technologies. The productivity in the service sector typically is labor intensive. It's frequently focused on unique individual attributes or desirable, because an individual is providing a service many times one-to-one to a customer. Often is an intellectual task performed by professionals. Often it's difficult to mechanize and automate. Often difficult to evaluate for quality. This is another example. Beside the Starbucks, the productivity at Taco Bell, they made some improvement, revised the menu, designed meals for easy preparation, shifted some preparation to suppliers, efficient layout and automation, training and employee empowerment, new water and energy savings grill. The results: the preparation time was cut to 8 seconds. The management span of control, the number of people that a manager can supervise, increased from 5 people to 30. The labor in stores was cut by 15 hours a day. The floor space was reduced by more than 50%. The stores averaged 164 seconds per customer from dry up to pull out. The water and energy savings grill conserved 300 million gallons of water and 200 million kilowatt hours of electricity. Then the savings are a lot. And the green-inspired cooking methods saved almost 6,000 restaurants about $17 million per year in savings. It's as a result of some productivity improvement that were developed in Taco Bell. Now, new challenge in operations management, a global focus. We're going to see that in Chapter 2. Supply chain, sustainability, rapid product development, mass customization, just-in-time performance, that is the trend of today, and empowering employees. With this, we finalize this Chapter 1. Thank you.